Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to do either one of these scarves. I had one with the thicker yarn and then also one with just the basic acrylic. So stick around and I will show you guys how to do these scarves. So for this tutorial you are going to need yarn. You're also going to need some scissors to cut your yarn once you're done. And then as well you're going to need some threading or needles. And in this I have two different sizes. So this one is for much thicker yarn. So with my thicker yarn I'm definitely going to want to use this one because it will thread and work a lot easier when I'm just weaving in my ends. And then there's a smaller one which will be better for the acrylic yarn. So if you're doing one or the other, I would recommend having one that matches the yarn you're planning on using. And if you would like, just to make sure how long your scarves are going to be, measuring tape would be very helpful. I know I use mine all the time to help me figure out how big everything's going to be and how long. So you might need that as well. I will have in the description affiliated links for all the supplies or similar supplies if I couldn't find the exact brands and things like that that I'm showing in this video. That'll work perfectly for making these scarves, so be sure to check those out. Affiliated means that I will make a small commission if you guys click on the links and purchase the items. That really helps me on YouTube and it helps me grow and create more content for you guys. So please think about doing that, or if you're able to, please do so because that really helps me out. I have acrylic yarn here, so this is a 4-weight acrylic and I just picked a color that you guys can see. This is in the color Pool with Red Heart. So whatever color you guys plan on using, if you're a beginner, I would strongly encourage you using a solid color just because it can be really difficult when you're doing it back and forth to figure out where all your stitches are. So try to pick a light color and one color preferably. And also match your hook according to your yarn. So I'm doing the 4-weight and it recommends that I use an eye hook or a 5.25 millimeter hook. That's what I'll be doing for this one. And then there is, for the thicker yarn, this one I'm using is called Hometown by Lion Brand. And it is in the color, I have to uncover my little, there's a sticker on it. So it's in Elmore City, it's Elmore City Dance is the color. So if you're looking for the same yarn that I'm using, that's the yarn color. It is a super bulky number 6. They recommend that I use an N hook or a 9 millimeter, but I'm going to get away with trying to see if I can just do a K or a 6.50 millimeter. I do have an N, I just don't want to do one so big because I want to see if I can go smaller. That's the fun thing, is you can tweak a little bit, going a little higher or a little lower. It just depends on how your stitches and stuff will play out. So just keep that in mind if you're going with thicker or thinner yarn, even different than what I'm doing here. Just keep that in mind when we do this tutorial, because I get it, you may not be able to find this yarn. I haven't seen this yarn in a while, and I got this all on clearance a long time ago. So I'm just kind of busting my stash using it. I only have 3 skeins of yarn right now. So, and it seems like it's recommending that I need 4. That's why I was tweaking my hook size to see if maybe I can get away with just making one scarf with just 3. So we will see how that goes. Alright, so I'm going to start with the acrylic one and then I will jump to this one. So I'll have timestamps in the video if you're wanting to do a specific one or just want to watch specific parts. So get ready guys, grab your yarn and grab your hook. Alright, starting with the acrylic yarn, you want to get your matching hook. So we're going to start by doing a slip knot. And if you don't know how to do a slip knot, be sure to watch my other videos. I cover on how to do a slip knot. And then you'll also want to know how to do chaining, and we're going to be doing half double crochet as well. So if you are not very familiar with any of those, be sure to go check. I have them linked down below, and that'll help you a lot more because I'm just going to be covering how to do the scarf in this video. So now you're going to want to chain 22. make sure that you do have 22. So count all your little V's and make sure there are 22 of them. So now what you're going to do is count to the 3rd stitch. So we do not count the loop on our hook. So we count this first one, that's our first one, 2nd, and 3rd. So this is the one we're going to want to work into. So you're going to yarn over and do your half double crochet into that 3rd stitch. And then you're going to half double crochet all the way across. Now, if you don't want to do the half double crochet, you're more than welcome to do a single crochet or any other stitch. You just might have to adjust your chaining accordingly. I just figured for the sake of an easy tutorial and also just something that can kind of work up quicker, this will be a good way to do that while still being a warm scarf. Because with a single crochet, it's going to be a very tight stitch, but this makes it kind of looser. But you don't want to go too loose unless you're wanting a very thin scarf, because you'll have a lot more holes. So keep that in mind with what you're trying to go for, and that's why I stuck with the half double crochet, because you'll have a little bit of gaps, but not really. It'll still be pretty thick, but it'll still be kind of light. So it'll kind of make it more softer in a way as well. So you can play around with the stitches if you want. Just keep in mind tweaking it will affect how your scarf will turn out. So do your half double crochets all the way to the end. And I'll meet you guys at the end of this row. Alright, we're at the end of that first row. So make sure to count all your stitches, but you should have a stitch count of 20. So make sure to count each of those little V's. You don't really count this little curve right here. A lot of times when it comes to counting it gets confusing on these are essentially our chains. So we don't really count those when we come to counting our stitches. So if you're having a hard time with recognizing where do my stitches start, I always look for that first stitch. I think you know how we have these stitches right here. I count that one. So if I can look straight above that one, that V, that's where our count will start. So you'll count 1, 2, 3, all the way to 20. So I know that can be kind of tricky. I still struggle with it myself, especially when I'm doing other projects. So just kind of watch for those chains, because we don't count in this situation those chains as a stitch. So now that we have our 20, we are going to chain 2 and turn our work. And we're going to half double crochet in each stitch across. Alright, I'm at that second end of the second row here. Again, if you're worried about your stitch count and stuff, definitely count to make sure that you have your 20, because we're not increasing or decreasing. And we're honestly going to just keep repeating this second row all the way till I have to figure out how many rows this will take to get the measurements and everything. But you really can just keep doing it until you get as long as you want it to be, or as short as you want it to be. So I'll have what I have in the end here when I get going on mine. But as well, if I didn't mention, you also don't have to chain as many as I did. If you're wanting this to be a little smaller, go a little smaller. Just keep in mind, if you're doing the half double crochet like we've been doing, you're going to have to incorporate enough stitches to that length. So if, say you only have like 15, we'll pretend this is 15, that's how much you want. Keep in mind, add like 2 extra chains, because those need to make your turning. So just keep that in mind to have 2 extra, however many chains that you actually want. That's if you're wanting to tweak it and do your own thing. I get that. I do it all the time when I'm crocheting stuff. I make stuff bigger or smaller. So keep doing your half double crochets all the way while you're doing your chain. So you do chain 2 and then half double crochet, chain 2, half double crochet. You just keep going back and forth until you get to your desired length. I'm going to have what I have done here in a minute after I do some more of my rows and figure out how long I want this to be, and that way you guys can kind of see how many rows I ended up working up with this acrylic yarn. Alright, I've been working on this for a bit now, so we got quite the long tail going on with all these stitches. I didn't bother counting just because it can be just so many rows to count. It's a lot easier just to measure and give measurements. So by the time I got to a decent length that I was okay with, this was about 56 inches all the way from one end to the other. And this is about what I'm looking at with my skein here. This was a 7-ounce skein, brand new, that I started with. And so I'm down to, you know, a little bit here. So if you're wanting it to be longer than that, maybe finish the skein if you're using the 7-ounce Red Heart yarn like I am, if you want to. Or this is a good place to stop. Or if you wanted it to be shorter, you would probably need less yarn. So we're going to finish this off. So I just finished doing this last row all the way across. And now all we have to do is just do our little slip knot through that. And I've got a long strand here, so that's still attached to my yarn. So I'm just going to kind of give myself just, you know, about that much. Just because I want to be able to weave in my yarn and then make it so it doesn't pop out. I've had too many times where it pops out, especially with acrylic yarn. And it just doesn't look nice, and it also just makes it so that eventually over time your project will come undone. And you don't want that, because it can be annoying trying to weave in ends, especially once you've already clipped it so short. Weaving back in is a nightmare, and you usually have to maybe get rid of a row or two or try to attach your yarn differently. So it's better to give yourself a little bit of a tail. So I'm just going to pull this out. It'll create that nice little knot. Now you'll want to grab your... I'm using just my basic, this is what I usually use on acrylic, so it's just my normal needle. You'll slip it on in. Now I like to try and find, I like to do my needle through these bottom parts. So these were the stitches you were working, and then to these stitches here. So I like to find where the loops there's 2 loops, and just kind of pull my needle through those up a couple ways, up a couple stitches here, just to kind of get it woven in. And then this was the little stitch that we popped out under, so I like to go over and then into all those other ones. So I kind of like jump over it, kind of miss it almost, because that'll kind of secure. Because if I go back through it, it'll just undo everything I just did, and we don't want that. And you'll just keep going back and forth trying to get those all in. So see, if we didn't do that, it would have just gone back through, whereas it's creating kind of a knot there. So we'll want to do the same on this side. Go all the way through. So I'm skipping. This is the one that we ended on, so I'm skipping over it to go into the other ones. Just kind of go through. I have to do it one more time, same way, where you skip over, just to create more of a knot where you're more secure. See, if I tug this is not going anywhere, and this is not moving. So if you ever like question how good your ends are woven in, I usually play around with the piece and see if I'm gonna tug on it or move it. If it doesn't move, like this isn't really moving at all, then you know this is pretty secure. Whereas if you can pull it, all of a sudden it's poking through, it's probably not secure, and you're probably gonna have it poking through before long. And I've had that happen before, because once you clip this, it'll be so short that weaving it in just won't be possible. So there we go. And now if you at any point, I didn't with this, but if you at any point I do have this end that I'll have to weave in. But if you had to attach any yarn, or if you ran out and had to start another skein, you'll want to weave in any of those ends as well, just to make it all look nice and neat. Just like I said, if you watch the other part with the acrylic, you can vary with the size hook if you're wanting to, but also you can vary with how many chains I'm about to show you. This is just a suggestion and to kind of get you guys going. If you want to change the size, if it seems like yours is working up smaller or you want it bigger, you can definitely tweak this. So we're going to do a slip knot. And if you don't know how to do a slip knot or chaining, because we're going to be doing some chaining here, or how to single crochet, go check the description of this video. I have links on tutorials on how to do that. I won't be covering that in here because this is mostly for learning how to do the scarf. I have more in-depth tutorials on how to do those different stitches and techniques. So go ahead and check those out in the description down below. And I have a whole playlist for crocheting for beginners if you are interested in checking that out and you haven't done so already. All right, so we are going to chain 16. This kind of looks like a braid. All right, once you have your 16 chains, we are going to skip. So this is we don't count this loop as a stitch. So this one right next to it, right here, that's our first stitch. So in the second stitch, we are going to single crochet. Then we're going to single crochet in each stitch all the way to the end. Alright, I just did all of my single crochets all the way across. So you'll want to make sure that when you count that you have 15 because we skipped one. So we lost our one stitch, so now it made it 15. So count all the way to the end. Make sure. Now this is where I said if you're looking at it, because this will give you an idea about how long wide your scarf will be. So if you're looking at it and being like, that's a little too wide, I want it a little smaller, just figure out how many less stitches, like count how many you think you'll need. Just remember to have that one extra stitch because that'll help us have our little turning there. So whatever number of chains plus 1 is basically what we're doing. So now to do the next row, you're going to chain 1 and turn. And then you're going to single crochet in each stitch all the way across. Alright, I just finished doing all my single crochets all the way across for this second row. And so you should count, we didn't increase or we didn't decrease, so you should still have 15 stitches going all the way across. And that's our repeat for this. So you just chain your 1 and then you'll single crochet in each across and always having your 15. So if you tweaked it and you changed however many chains, just make sure that whatever your chaining was and then you subtract the 1, just make sure that whatever it was after you subtracted the 1, that's what your stitch count should be all the way. So I'm going to keep on working my rows and I will let you guys know how many rows I got and how long my scarf is. Alright, so this far, this is my progress. I just finished my first skein of this yarn. So I've got down to, that much left. I was just going to show for some of my newbies that don't know how to add yarn on when you're working a project. So when I find that I don't have enough yarn, I like to leave enough of a tail because I want to tie my ends together and then I'll tuck it into my work and keep it from coming undone. So when I find that, okay, that's about the stitch that I want to stop at, I'll kind of pull back. So as if we were going to rework this stitch. So this is the one that's attached to your hook, and this is the one that we would have worked when we were doing our single crochet. So I'm just going to put that on here. So instead of grabbing my yarn and pulling it through like it just was like, I'll grab my new yarn, give it a little bit of a tail, because these are the two that I'm going to tie and then tuck in. So I like to give myself a little bit of a tail. So I will kind of drape. So my tail goes towards the back. Drape it over my hook as if it were to be grabbed, like if we were just normally going, and then pull it through. And that'll add the new yarn on and it secures it. And if you want to, you can go ahead and tie it. I usually wait till the end, but if you're worried about it slipping out, because it'll be a little loose in the beginning, but you're more than welcome to tie that and have it more secured. And then keep going with your work until you run out again and then have to do the same thing again. So just wanted to show you guys how to do that because I know it's not something that a lot of new people will know how to do if they're crocheting. So hopefully that was helpful with that. Okay, so I've been crocheting for quite a bit of time and my scarf is so big that I cannot get it in the frame. But yes, this did not take nearly as quick as the video. I took several hours. With it being chunky though, it does work up a lot faster. So that is the plus side with this chunkier yarn. And I was unable to complete it with just the 3. I did have to go and find another one. And the plus side is you can find this yarn online. So I went ahead and ordered on Amazon and they gave me a pack of 3. So I just needed the one more skein, and I will have in the description, if you're interested in using this yarn for your scarf, I have down in the description an affiliated link for this. So, and I said I was going to count how many rows, but I think that can be a little ridiculous with how long this is. So I went ahead and just measured it for you guys. So this ended up being just a little bit over 55 inches, like just barely. And you can go on how long you want. So if you're wanting to go longer, you'll definitely need more than 4 skeins. But if you're wanting to stick around that, 4 will do good. If you want to go shorter than that, each will be a little less. So I just kind of tested on myself and just pretended like I was wearing it, and you know, tie it the way you think you're gonna tie it, and wear it the way you think you're gonna wear it, and that'll kind of give you the idea of how long to make this. That's just how I always eyeball everything. So, and then when it comes to fastening off your work, it's not too difficult because here we are. We just finished. This is about how much I have left of my 4th skein. So if that helps you guys at all on how long yours is and such. But here I had finished this last one. And then you do your chain. And then I usually, and since there's not a whole lot here, I'll just pull mine through. But if yours is really long, like you are still on another skein, and there's quite a bit of yarn left, I would clip maybe a decent sized tail, like, you know, that long that you can weave in. And then you can just do the same thing, weave it through, and then that'll create your knot, and then that'll finish off your scarf. And then I would thread your little needle and then weave it in. So I can show very quickly how to do that. So since we're using the chunkier yarn, I'm going to use my much thicker needle of my pack of needles. And you'll thread it through. It'll make it a lot easier than doing the smaller one using the chunkier yarn. And I like to watch where my scarf's so long, guys. I like to kind of see where my stitches kind of come across here. So where each stitch, like that's a stitch right here, these two. I kind of work my way under all of those. Just up a few, you know. Got like 1, 2, 3, so that's about 4 stitches here. And then there's that one that we just went under. I'm going to come over top of it and then go back through the same ones. If that makes any sense. And then I'll do the same thing where this was the last one, so I'll go in front of it and into these next ones. So this is the one that we looped, and this is where we came back to it, go back through. So I'm not going to go all the way through to that one. And I would try not to pull too hard because it'll pull your stitches. Whoops. It'll pull your stitches too tight. And then one more time I would go back through. I usually try to like kind of weave it in such a way that it's a little less on each one. So like we started going through all the way through, and then there was the one that we went over. Now when you're tugging on it, it won't, because we went back and forth enough times that it kind of secures it. So if it gets tugged or anything, it won't come loose. Because when I first started out crocheting, I used to just kind of weave it through and then weave it through. But what will happen is when it gets tugged or stretched, it'll slowly come loose and you'll start having it pop through, and then your stuff might start unraveling. I mean, you created a knot here, so this shouldn't unravel, but it will be really annoying because you'll have these ends sticking up. You don't really want that when you work so hard on something and then you have little threads sticking out, because it could make it more potential to come apart. And then you'll just clip it. Try to get as close as you can and cut. And there you have your just basic little scarf. You are welcome. I have in the past done little like tinsely, or I don't know what you call those. Just where you have like the little ends. You can do that if you want. I personally, after doing a whole scarf, I'm usually just happy to have a scarf done. So you're welcome to add more things to it, but I was just going simple for beginners. And you'll want to go back through if you did it like what I did, and you have where you attached your new skeins. I usually will tie these just to kind of make them a little more secure. Since this is chunky yarn, I might only do like maybe 1 or 2 knots. Just because if you do any more, it's going to bulk out and you don't really want to see your knots. And then I would weave it through kind of and using the similar method of what I was showing on the end. So make sure you catch all your little ends here. And sew that through. So there you have your little scarf done. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I hope that you were able to make one of these scarves or multiple scarves, or can go ahead and just go crazy in making scarves. Either way, I hope that this was helpful in making your progress on making scarves as a new beginner or just revisiting possible. If you struggle at any point during this video, drop it down in the comments. I would love to help you guys out and better clarify anything that may have been confusing. If you have any requests for future videos that you would like me to do or tutorials, drop them down in the comments. I always am loving suggestions and hearing what all you have to say. So until next time, guys, bye!